What could possibly make Elvis Presley, the legendary king of rock and roll, question his own marriage and distance himself from the love of his life? It's a story filled with passion, conflict, and a revelation so unexpected it will leave you stunned. Priscilla Presley, in her own words, uncovers the deeply personal and haunting fear that consumed Elvis, one that shaped their relationship in ways no one could have predicted. Stay tuned as we unravel the shocking truth behind this mystery. It's not what you think, and it's far more complicated than it seems. Elvis Presley and Priscilla Beaulieu's love story has long captivated fans around the world. From their first meeting to their glamorous life together, they seemed to embody the perfect fairy tale. Yet behind the dazzling public appearances and romantic gestures was a relationship far more complex than anyone could have imagined. Beneath the surface, the couple faced challenges that tested the very foundation of their bond, challenges rooted not in fame or fortune, but in something deeply personal and intangible. Their connection was undeniable, but so were the pressures that came with Elvis's rising stardom and their evolving roles in each other's lives. As Elvis's career reached unprecedented heights, he began exploring a different path, one that had nothing to do with music or fame. His curiosity about spirituality and philosophical teachings became an intense pursuit, shaping his thoughts and guiding his decisions. This journey wasn't just a passing interest. It became a defining part of who he was. Books on religion, soulmates, and the meaning of life filled the shelves at Graceland, and late-night discussions often turned into philosophical musings. It was a transformation that added a new dimension to Elvis's life, but it also came with unexpected consequences for his relationship with Priscilla. This spiritual awakening wasn't just a personal evolution. It was a shift that would profoundly impact their marriage. While Priscilla admired Elvis's dedication, the changes it brought into their dynamic began to weigh heavily on them both. What was once a love built on shared dreams and moments of joy started to feel strained under the weight of differing priorities. Stick around, because what you're about to uncover is a story of love, faith, and fear that drove a wedge between this iconic couple, a truth so unexpected it will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Elvis Presley was never one to shy away from exploring the unknown, and as his fame grew, so did his quest for deeper meaning in life. Drawn to spirituality, he immersed himself in books about religion, soulmates, and the mysteries of the universe. This wasn't just casual curiosity. Elvis threw himself wholeheartedly into this new world, believing it held answers to questions he had carried for years. It wasn't uncommon for him to spend late nights reading, searching for wisdom that might guide him through his inner struggles. To those closest to him, it was clear. Elvis wasn't just chasing enlightenment, he was wrestling with something far more profound. Priscilla Presley, deeply in love with Elvis, tried her best to meet him in this new chapter of his life. She made efforts to read the philosophical texts he loved, attempting to understand the man he was becoming. But no matter how hard she tried, it was a world she couldn't fully grasp or embrace. Priscilla later admitted in her memoir that while she wanted to be his soulmate, her heart yearned for the simpler, more romantic moments they had once shared. She watched as Elvis became increasingly consumed by his spiritual pursuits, leaving her feeling more and more like a bystander in their relationship. In her book, Elvis and Me, Priscilla painted a vivid picture of this growing distance. While I waited at home for him, he believed he was going through a cleansing period, physically and spiritually, she wrote. For Priscilla, this cleansing felt less like a shared journey and more like a wall growing between them. She waited, planned romantic evenings, and hoped to reconnect, but Elvis seemed determined to conquer his own inner battles, often at the expense of the bond they once shared. What could drive such a passionate man to retreat into a world of self-discipline and denial? The answer lies deeper than anyone could have expected, and it's a truth that changed everything. For Elvis Presley, The adoration of fans wasn't just a measure of his success, it was a constant presence in his life. While many would see the attention as flattering, for Elvis, it became a source of internal turmoil. Despite his deep love for Priscilla, he grappled with an overwhelming fear. The possibility that he might fail her, that the temptations surrounding him at every turn could pull him away from the commitment he so desperately wanted to honor. It was a battle that raged quietly within him, one he rarely voiced but could never escape. Elvis's fear wasn't just about his actions. It was about the guilt and shame he felt simply for having to fight these urges in the first place. This fear began to cast a shadow over his relationship with Priscilla. He couldn't ignore the attention he received from women, the advances that came effortlessly in his world of fame. For someone who prided himself on discipline and self-control, these moments of human vulnerability left him feeling conflicted and unworthy. Elvis adored Priscilla, yet he began to pull away from her, afraid of what his reactions might mean. He feared betraying not only her trust, but the image of the man he wanted to be for her. It wasn't just about resisting temptation, it was about living up to his own ideals of loyalty and honor, something he worried he might not be able to do. Priscilla would later reflect on this in her memoir, capturing the heart of his struggle with her words. He loved me and wanted to be faithful, but never felt certain he could resist temptation. This profound confession reveals just how deeply Elvis wrestled with his emotions, torn between his love for her and the insecurities that gnawed at him. It was a fear that grew into a wedge between them, one that neither of them fully understood at the time. How could the king of rock and roll, a man adored by millions, feel so powerless in his own heart? The answer is both heartbreaking and revealing, shedding light on the fragility beneath the legend. Priscilla Presley had always been deeply committed to supporting Elvis in every way she could, but his newfound devotion to spirituality and philosophy introduced a side of him she struggled to connect with. Night after night, their quiet moments together were consumed by Elvis reading dense texts aloud, passages that were meant to enlighten but only left Priscilla feeling distant and disconnected. Determined not to let him down, she tried to keep up, opening the books and attempting to share in his passion. But the weighty words felt foreign to her, and no matter how much effort she put in, she couldn't force herself to see the world as Elvis did. Her feelings of inadequacy grew, and with them, a sense of isolation in the very relationship she cherished most. Elvis, immersed in his spiritual pursuits, began to notice Priscilla's reluctance, and his frustration with her lack of enthusiasm spilled over into their conversations. In moments of tension, he would warn her that their relationship might not survive if they couldn't align on such an essential part of his life. "Things will never work out between us, Scylla, because you don't show any interest in me or my philosophies," he told her, his words cutting deeper than he realized. To Priscilla, these remarks weren't just casual criticisms. They were a reminder of her fear that she wasn't enough for him, that she might lose him to someone who shared his newfound passions more deeply. The strain of these unspoken fears began to fracture the foundation of their once effortless connection. The pressure finally became too much, and one night, Priscilla reached her breaking point. As Elvis read another passage to her, she couldn't hold back the frustration and pain that had been building for so long. "I can't stand it. I don't want to hear any more. I'm sick and tired of your voice going on and on," she cried, her voice shaking with emotion. Pulling at her hair in anguish, she begged for his attention, not as a fellow philosopher, but as the woman who loved him and needed to feel seen. But instead of grasping the depth of her plea, Elvis, dulled by his nightly sleeping pills, drifted into sleep, leaving Priscilla alone with the unresolved ache in her heart. It was a moment that revealed the growing chasm between them, one built not of anger, but of unmet needs and unspoken fears. How could a love so powerful feel so distant? The answer lies in the heart of their story, a truth more poignant than either of them could have imagined. Elvis Presley's spiritual journey, while deeply personal and transformative, created an emotional distance that neither he nor Priscilla could fully bridge. As he dove deeper into the teachings of philosophy and spirituality, his focus shifted away from the relationship they had built over the years. What had once been a connection filled with laughter, romance, and shared dreams now felt like a quiet void. Priscilla, yearning for the man she had fallen in love with, found herself waiting on the sidelines, trying to understand the changes within him while struggling to make sense of her place in his world. For Elvis, his spiritual quest was a sanctuary, a path to clarity. But for Priscilla, it became a wall that she couldn't seem to climb. Despite her efforts to reconnect, the distance between them only seemed to grow. Priscilla planned romantic gestures and moments to recapture the closeness they once shared, but Elvis's mind seemed elsewhere, preoccupied with his own internal battles. On one occasion, she poured her heart out, hoping he would see the depth of her pain and longing. But instead of responding with the warmth she desperately needed, Elvis, caught up in his rituals and drained by his nightly routine, fell asleep mid-conversation, leaving her words hanging in the air. For Priscilla, it was a devastating realization. Her love for him, no matter how strong, couldn't always reach him through the barriers he had built around himself. What could drive such a wedge between two people so deeply in love? The answer reveals a side of their relationship few have ever known. Elvis Presley's story is one of profound love and deep internal conflict. A man torn between his spiritual aspirations and the vulnerabilities that made him human. Could he have conquered his fears and built a stronger bond with Priscilla, or were they destined to drift apart? What do you think? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more untold stories of the King of Rock and Roll. Your voice matters, and we can't wait to hear from you.